So advice to any younger listeners would definitely be, once you make peace with that, don't care what anyone thinks about you, don't be judgmental on other people. You'll see someone walking down the street and go, what's that guy wearing, or what's that girl wearing? Who cares? It's the natural law. If they're not doing no harm to anyone, why do we care? Why is it portrayed in the media that they're not wearing the best trainees, they're not wearing the best tracksuits? It doesn't matter. It matters that they're a good human being, and that's what we're very, very removed from at the moment.
All right, welcome to the New Age Human Podcast. I'm your host, John Anastasio, and today we're talking with Paul Whiteside from the UK, Liverpool. Woo-hoo! So he's a highly driven entrepreneur, successful businessman, husband and father, producer of the Number 42 podcast. So really cool. Check him out. So stick around for the whole episode because we're going to talk about dealing with trauma and turning that into your superpower, a psychedelic trip that Paul went on where he got some feedback on self-reflection and the importance of finding your tribe for success in life. So before we begin, just a reminder, you can always join our Telegram channel where we basically discuss topics mentioned in the show and more importantly, sharing what topics are of most interest to you. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can always go to newagehuman.com and there should be a contact button and a record button too if you want to do a voice recording. So let's get to the show. Thanks for joining us. Let's go. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. We started having a conversation around doing a show together, and you have your own podcast. If you're watching the Number 42 podcast. So, Paul, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and you're coming all the way from Liverpool, and I think that is awesome for anybody who's wondering about the accent, who's not used to the accent on the show. I'm excited because now we're bringing more color in the vocal section of the show. So this is going to be really cool, and we have some interesting topics to talk about. So Paul, psychedelic trips, you went bananas and you went all into that.
Yeah, it come around about it. I think I stumbled upon reading during the pandemic. Obviously, we're all going down rabbit holes and so on and so forth. And very interested in the psychedelic thing, so done me homework, as they say, and researched quite well. A group of really close-knit friends, which I think is really important that you do something like that with, got together and we planned out what we were going to do. Long story short is there's a few basic rules that I know you've covered psychedelics before, but I'd like to touch on, which are rule number one, and probably the most important one, is set and setting. So I believe you should always be out in nature, and it should be always with people you trust. Having a trip sitter is quite important as well. So obviously, if anyone has a bad experience, then they can help along with that, really. Would you like me to retort the story?
Yeah, I definitely want to get into how you discovered that you were an indigo child. But yeah, if there's a story in there, go ahead. And are you in the woods in the story?
So what happened was we planned, we talked about it, we found the supplier, because obviously here where we are, it's not strictly legitimate, shall we say. So what we done was we went out, hired a little cottage out over Pendle Hill, lovely setting, summer's evening, sun going down, really, well, evening, sun was going down but for quite a while. Made a mushroom tea, obviously waited for the trip to take hold, so we're all sitting around in the garden. We've all measured out the mushrooms according to body weight, so on and so forth, which is really important that you do these things. Get the giggles, then the visuals come on, and wow, I remember the trip kicked in and it was intense. I remember thinking to myself, you wanted this, let it ride and go with it and see where it takes you. Obviously, before going into it, I had a massive fear of death because I really enjoy life and all the trappings that come with it. So I remember thinking about death and, what's the, sort of key to the universe, and some sort of purple wave come past me. And it said so much to me, like, we're all energy, we go on, don't worry. But without saying anything, it was really unusual how it happened. And from that point onwards, I settled and I had one of the best experiences of my life, really. The visuals, the trees were pulsating with energy and colours. You could see molecules and stuff. Friends of mine had different coloured auras. Some had orange, some had green and purples. And it was fantastic. I've only done it the one time, so it's not like and the thing you do that is addictive. So that psychedelic trip was absolutely fantastic, and I think everyone should at least once go there, but you have to go in with the right state of mind. I think if you're holding on to any traumas or you're worried about it, don't do it. That would be my advice anyway.
That was an interesting trip. Now, to go into it, now you said you feel that because you had a fear of death, that was one of the messages that you got the most from, right? Where it said there's a purple wave, and it said in some way or form, don't worry about it because it's a continuation. That's just how it is. Do you feel like you're less afraid of death now?
Yeah, I mean, I find that I'm able to handle the thought of it now because I think it's something that we can't escape. So I think if you make peace with it, there was a Netflix documentary series called How to Change Your Mind. It was filmed in the US. Really, really good. And they give that treatment to terminal cancer patients, and they come out the other side of it really losing that anxiety of dying, which I found beautiful when I watched the series, really. So I advise everyone to watch that as well because it gives you a sort of doorway into that world, really.
Okay. Now, the trees, they were pulsating and you saw molecules. That is freaky.
So the tree thing was really, if you've seen Avatar, that's how I can explain it. You know, when you see the trees and they're definitely alive. There's something that, you know, they're integrated under the ground. Obviously, with mushrooms, there's a thing called the mycelial network. I don't know if you know about that, don't you?
Yeah, elaborate on that.
So obviously, it's a network of root systems that go throughout the planet, and apparently trees can talk to each other, other things can happen, insects, everything. It's all connected in our ecosystem, and it's a very delicate ecosystem, but it's also really efficient as well. In life, death, it regenerates. So when something dies and it goes into the ground, it's reborn as something else. The energy is used up, so nothing ever really dies, in my opinion. So if you see some of these, I'm really interested in this, by the way, when you do die, which is not something that I'm really looking forward to, but you can get these pods where you put in like a fetal position in like a sack, and you put with a sapling in the ground, and you feed the tree as your body dies off. So I found that fascinating. So you sort of live on through nature.
You know, what do you think about this idea that actually trees feed us because it's like they're growing us as their food. They feed us their fruit and their vegetation so that we can grow big and strong, and then when we die, they absorb us through the ground. So it's actually them taking care of us.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, they obviously filter what we breathe out, and they give us what we breathe. So it's an ecosystem, isn't it? It works hand in hand. So I think, you know, we need to be protecting the environment, and we talk a lot about going back to nature. And I think spending time out in the countryside, it's something everyone should do. Go for a walk, you know, get out your comfort zone. I mean, I recently went to Crete and hiked down to a waterfall on my wedding anniversary, and it was phenomenal. Swam in rivers and all sorts, trekked down gorges to get to this waterfall in Crete, and it was one of the best days ever, and it's something I'll never forget.
I love hiking, especially with like some close friends, and it's a way to get some mental clarity and reconnect, and some of your best ideas come from that, right? Like I always recommend, not always, I don't think I ever recommended this, but I would say I recommend now. I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to bring, if not my phone, my like a notebook, and as the thoughts flow and I observe nature, and part of what I want to do is help people reconnect to themselves and nature, throw some ideas down on paper. I think that would be really cool. But I want to go back to how you had an awesome setup where you guys measured everything out for your mushroom trip, and you went to like this cottage in the middle of the woods. Who are those people that you decided to surround yourself with? I think that would be very interesting.
So they are the crew from the Number 42 podcast. They are lads that I grew up with, and we've stayed friends. And we've all got various backgrounds now as well, so we've all got very, very different jobs, and we are very, very tight knit. And anyone who listens to our podcast will feel that energy in the room. There's something that goes on, and the podcast is becoming successful at the moment, and it's something that you can't easily replicate. There's an energy that's generated. There's a symbiotic relationship there where we generate energy between us, and it is fun and games on that podcast. Like, and I think anyone who listens to it will come across that.
Yeah, you guys are hilarious. Definitely check out his podcast. We will have a link and information at the end of the show, so no worries about that. Am I to understand that the people that you decided to just pretty much have this amazing trip with, they were or are your fellow podcast co-hosts
Slash best friends as well.
Best friends. Oh, so it was a mix of people that are the people that, if someone listens to your show, some of those people were there, if not all of them, plus some of your best friends from like way back.
No, the best friends are the ones that run the show as well with us. What happened, it was sort of by accident we created the show. We decided that we weren't seeing enough of each other, so we put a Friday night every 2 weeks together to meet up and have a couple of beers. I think on the first night we had maybe a little bit of marijuana and things flowed. Some ideas come out, and someone suggested we just should record what we talk about. Obviously, we're massive into our talking. I think the generation of going down to your local pub or club and talking about things, particularly for males as well, was a big thing. You'd work all week and then you'd go to a pub club and you would talk with other males, and I think that's a massive thing that's missing now in society. I think after pandemics and that, people are sort of apprehensive about going out, whether they can afford it, whether, you know, they're scared to go out, and we're sort of bringing that sort of pub type humour to the podcast. But also we do factual stuff, and that it's a bit of a magazine. We do stuff on music, we have fun, there's quizzes, whatever. Really, the dynamic works really, really well.
Talking about the culture of just at the end of the day, whether you have a business, whether you're working, you meet up with your friends, your boys, you go to the pub, the club, and you just kind of just live it up, right? You have these conversations, you exchanged all the things you learned throughout the week, and you're seeing that where you are slowly going away because of just the times have changed, where people are more so indoors or used to being indoors after the lockdowns. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think technology plays a big part as well. A lot of people are buried in phones and stuff, and they're finding alternative ways of entertaining themselves, but they're taking themselves away from social circles that we as hunter-gatherers were always in. So our idea is we are building a community slowly and steady of like-minded people. So the people that will come to the podcast now to listen, we're retaining them. Obviously, someone made us this sign behind, which was fantastic, and it was a lovely surprise on one of the shows. And we're just trying to find a way in a digital era of still keeping our identity. So you've sort of got a bit in the matrix and a little bit out of it, if you, so to speak.
Yeah. And for anybody that's listening, when he was pointing to the poster behind him, it's the number, a fan created a poster for him, and it's the number 42 image made in the micro images of the show graphics, I believe, right? Each episode has like
show titles, yeah.
So titles, yeah. So it's actually pretty cool. And this will be on YouTube, so no worries. So I think what I wanted to do is talk about how, first of all, you were saying that, I'm laughing at a story that you said, because I want you to explain. Let's go into it. I want you to explain for someone who's listening. Paul has no eyebrows and no eyelashes, no hair, and in his words, he's always ready to go out. He's always ready to go out and have some fun. Yep. Can you share that story, if you don't mind? I think people appreciate it.
I'll go back to 1976 was the year of my birth. Unusual heat wave that year as well, so something special was happening then. I entered the planet. I was actually 2 months premature, and I was born with no eyebrows, no eyelashes, like I am now. Went on, grew, had a normal, great upbringing, 80s and 90s. Fantastic time to be alive, in my opinion. Probably didn't have the best of diets once I'd had children. I'd always played football or soccer, as you guys call it. at a really good level. Always done well in athletics in school, stuff like that. Was really a fit person. Obviously, children come along, and that takes a back burner. If you're going to do it properly, you're going to put your energy into your children rather than into a gym. So I had terrible diet. I was drinking Coke, and you just eat pasties in work, like pastries and stuff like that, and not really great. And I think I was suffering from a lot of heartburn. So I was in about 40. I was about 40. A circle of grey hair appeared about the size of a dime, you would call it, you guys, in my head. And one of my mates was saying, "Oh, look, you've got a grey hair." And then it fell out. And then it started to go all over. And then literally all my hair just went out. I haven't got any armpit hair, any nether region hair. I've got a little bit of hair on one leg, but not much. So it's called alopecia universalis, I think it's called, the proper terminology for it. And I looked quite extensively into it, and it was related to a lot of poor gut health, in my opinion, through inflammation, poor diet. So I struggled initially because I was like you. I was quite dark, had dark eyebrows, dark eyelashes, beard, stuff like that. And I struggled mentally for about 6 months because I struggled. It was like my identity had been rubbed out. And I remember my brother, who lives in Australia, said to me, "Own it. Find a way of owning it." And initially I thought, "Oh, you've what happened to you?" And then when I managed to digest the information, I thought, right, well, I'll go to the gym. I'll turn myself into one of these Marvel superheroes. So that's what I did. 5-6 years, I absolutely pummeled the diet. I'd done it. I was like the envy of all my friends because I was so fit and everyone else wasn't. But the driving force behind it was the trauma. So I turned the trauma into a positive. I eat healthy. I am healthier. I'm mentally stronger. I've come to a better place. And that part of the journey made me a big part of who I am now, really.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So to clarify, you said that you were born with eyebrows and eyelashes. And
No, I wasn't, because it was premature. So I've gone full circle.
Wait, so I thought you were born without eyebrows and eyelashes, and then they eventually grew in.
They grew, yeah, as you're a child, yeah, and then I lost them again, yeah.
So I think your body was like, no, this guy you're not supposed to have hair. That's it. You're supposed to be an anomaly and a superhero with no hair.
Yeah, a superhero, and my superpower is, which is explained to the other day, is I can get faster to go out than anyone on the planet. I can just put a shirt on, some aftershave, bit of deodorant, and I'm out the door.
And you're good to go. Wow.
Yeah.
And it says a lot where you've been able to turn a trauma into fuel to better your world, your life, your mentality, your health, and it really help you get past that, so that you have more positive things to look at because you achieved them versus why me and that victim mentality. So you're a really good example of someone that turned something that could have easily turned into a victim situation where it's like, and that's easier because very few people even have that situation happen to them, and so there's no commonality. And then you have the importance of really good people that you're surrounded by giving you really solid advice, and then you just took it and ran with it. So I think you're really good.
It was massive, yeah. That was massive. Sorry to interrupt you there, John. I'd like to say a big thanks to my wife as well for that matter, because she, it was difficult for her, and I, thought, this isn't who you married. I sort of went through a little, and she was mentally really strong for me, and she told me she loved me and don't to worry about it. I had kids, and I appreciated what I had. I think for anyone struggling, I think when we look at trauma and stuff, you can't go backwards. There's nothing you can do about it when it's past. So what you can do is what you do going forward. So that would be, obviously people have been through a lot worse than me, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos on girls, young girls as well, that have went through similar stuff, and I think a man can pull it off better than a girl. And and some of them girls were so inspirational. When it's like anything, if I do something, I research it. So I was researching about alopecia, and some of these ladies and women and stuff, I have to take my hats off from how handled the situation. I think it's a lot harder for a woman. So hats off to them, really.
Right, right. We, as a guy, you can still pull off the no hair, right? We both are pulling it
Yeah,
off pretty well, I think. And for women, yeah, it's more tied to the identity. It's less it's less desirable for a woman to see herself without hair. Although there's a lot of women that pull it off, and I think
yeah,
the concept and understanding of what beauty is expanding, so that's great. But in my opinion, beauty should not, or the way we see the world should not have to expand to assimilate to things that are, I don't want to say negative, but like, as we make poor decisions and as we slowly kill ourselves with chemicals and just not knowing what we're putting into our bodies, it's almost like we're forcing ourselves to accept a worsening human condition instead of identifying what needs to be fixed, because we're slowly killing ourselves, and I hate to have us start accepting less and less standards, because we should be moving upwards instead of down. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the food chain, for instance, I believe that is so corrupt, and I think it's made to keep us all ill, keep us down. If you look at governments of the world, if you were to go to your local supermarket, it's only fresh produce that should be. If you really, really want your people to be healthy, then you'd only put stuff there that is readily available, easy, nutritional. Now, if you walk into a store, you've got your candy bars, your crisps, your dips, all this stuff that is cheaper than wholesome foods. It's harder. Like, you go back to hunter gatherer. We had to hunt, prepare, and then eat, and then we would start again. Now, them old school values now today have gone. You've got your Deliveroos, your Just Eats, and it's shocking when you see
Your
what people are doing to
Deliveroos?
themselves. There's one called the Deliveroo. It's like a motorbike with a picture of a kangaroo on the back with pizzas and McDonald's in the back. But like I say, you can go on an app and it's expensive as well. People are talking about, inflation and stuff, and, grab the bull by the horns then, do something about it.
Yeah.
Jib that. Walk to the supermarket, earn your food. You've just walked the forest to get the rabbit, skin it in the supermarket, and get home and cook it. I think that's a lot of things in society, because it's so fast paced. We're all working 6-7 day weeks, night shifts. The whole setup is wrong at the moment. Like I say, we need to get back to nature. We need to sort. If this can inspire one person, our conversation now, that'd make me happy. Just one person had helped themselves out.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the conversation went that direction. We did not plan for it to be more of like a
No,
getting over past trauma. So I'm letting the wave ride itself, because I'm like, you know what? Maybe the universe is asking for this conversation to come out, and we're just letting it happen. So I do, like you said, I'd be ecstatic if we can help someone who's listening right now really just kind of look inside and see how they have the potential to do so much more. Just like you saw your hair coming out, I used to have like my identity was practically my hair when I was like a teenager. Like I had like that like long curly hair. We used to call it a blowout, and I would say maybe at the longest it was like maybe 4 inches. But like I had the headband on, like I used to dance and spin on my head. Like it was part of the look. And as I got more stressed, just going through life and going through my challenges, I remember at one point I saw like the barber actually behind me was like, "Hey, do you want me to go a little bit lower as a number, as far as close, like a little bit shorter?" I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Well," and they had that hesitation to tell me that you have like spots of hair that's thinning in the back of your head. And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's happening." And this is
yeah,
when I'm in my like mid to late 20s. And I was dreading the future, because all my father, my uncles, they're all like no hair. And so I'm like, it's happening. Oh man. So
own it, own
yeah,
it.
I had
That's
to
all I
own
can
it.
say
So
is own it.
I was like,
Well,
just do it all. Just all right, cool. We'll transfer it to the beard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. I can't even do that now. I can grow a bit of grey stuff, but
It did
going
take
back
me
to
a
the long
while to grow a beard. I will
to
say,
accept it.
like when I
Oh yeah.
was in my, sorry to cut you off, in my
No, no, no.
early 20s, like I went to high school and people were able to, like, start to, once they got out, like 1920, people had full beards. Like I couldn't grow my upper lip area. I just couldn't do it. And so I just had the bottom half just growing until I was maybe 27, and then I started to be able to, like, I'm just delay central.
Is that like Amish? That look like the Amish people just
Maybe,
grow the bottom. Yeah, is that like a bit of an Amish look?
I'm
Maybe.
wearing my Spartan shirt, I feel like I'm emulating that movie 300, like, this is Sparta.
Yeah,
you know.
brilliant. Touching on the long hair thing again, I had shoulder length hair. We in the 90s here, that obviously ecstasy and the rave hit scene, and it was huge here. It was absolutely, it liberated the people, and for the time, we lived in a utopia where we were free as, late teenage, early 20s, illegal warehouse raves, long hair, ponytails, psychedelic clothes, the lot. And you would meet people from other cities that predominantly didn't get along because of football or soccer, should we
Yeah.
say. There used to be big clashes. It was quite violent between football teams here at one point, and it sort of nullified that because people would go out and meet. They'd go to watch a football match in, say, like London from Liverpool, and usually they would fight at the end of it or before it, and then they would go out clubbing together and hugging each other, and you're great and you're this and you're that, and people made lasting relationships
Wow.
from that. And it was heavily come down on here, but it still survives a little bit to this day.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something. Where are the Beatles from?
They're from Liverpool as well, yeah.
So I think you'll appreciate this, and this happened recently. So I'm increasing my meditation practice, right? And I did it in the morning the other day, and I had a very stressful evening prior, where I felt like I wasted a lot of time on something that popped up. And so I had a meditation that's specifically for letting things go, letting things, just let it go. And the song from the Beatles popped up, and it just said, "Let It Be." And that song just kept on playing in my head throughout the whole day. And it was so calming. And I'm listening to the lyrics, and it's like the most simple song. And the answer to every challenge was just let it be. And I feel like that's a really good reference for our conversation, because you just let it go, and you owned it, right? Whether
Yeah, yeah.
whatever happens to you, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna let it be. I'm gonna move on, and I'm going to be stronger because of it.
Yeah. What can we do about things? I mean, we all like to think we're in control, but let's be honest with you. I could be here now, and a plane could land on the studio, and that'd be the end of me. I mean,
Very
let it be.
specific.
Yeah, if it happens, then I'll write for my predictions. Yeah, I really believe that it is a good mantra to have, because obviously, I think particularly as a younger male, you're a lot more reactive. I found that as I've got older and a bit more wiser, you sort of the count to 10 and look at the situation from a different perspective is massive sometimes. Maybe from the other person you may be having a little bit of an issue with. Look at things from their perspective. Maybe kill them with kindness. I do that a lot in my job. So when someone's actively the aggressor, I just keep being nice and keep being nice until I turn them into kittens, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and it's great to watch. And they end up liking you. I'd say 99.9% of the time. Obviously, you will get the odd person that'll never come off that ledge, but people are walking around stressed and highly strung, and they need to find something that's better. Like I say, we live in a world that's far too fast. It's outpaced for who we are, really.
No, and you put it pretty well. And just to highlight, like, you have a successful business, and I think it sounds like you can attribute that to. Well, let me ask you this: can you attribute a lot of the success that you have in your business, where you've been able to expand into a lot of the area, and you called it an empire at one point. And I'm pretty sure. And let me ask you, like, what do you attribute to that success? What do you think was like the major driving force to that?
A massive thing is visualization as well. I remember at the start, I took the business over from my father. I'd been a floor installer for 20 years. I'd been offered it by my dad a little bit. I didn't really want that. I'd always been like a freelance floor installer, so I worked for multiple companies that give me the freedom to do what I wanted to do, as where if I was going to do this job, it would anchor me. And that was quite terrifying because I like to be a bit more free. But when I made the decision that I was getting older and a physical sort of job wasn't going to be the best for me, I always hated paperwork as well, and really good at it now. I done myself a roadmap, and I actually printed it out on the computer and I put it up on the office wall, and I had certain goals along that roadmap, and I think visually it helped. And I set myself, I think, 2 years to do it, and I've done it in 9 months, and I dragged the business into the 21st century. I had a website, it's got social media, it's massive on Google, our reviews are through the roof, and now I've put it into the 20,000 feet plane now. Getting off the ground is the hard bit. Now I'm cruising at altitude, I'm reaping the benefits of it, and it really is going well, and I'm proud of what I've done, and I'm sort of putting my energy a lot into podcasting, the podcasting world at the moment, because I believe that the likes of ourselves can make a difference to people, and I like the sense of community that podcasts bring as well. It's interesting talk and stuff like that. Basically, that's where it got me, and I think surrounding yourself with people and positivity. Like as a boss, I never see myself as a boss. I always tell people we're a team, but I'm the captain. So obviously now and again I have to shout things, but not in an aggressive manner when I say shout things, but there needs to be structure. So if you surround yourself and you look after the people who work for you, it's a winning combination.
Nice. And I like how you mapped out your goals, right? You literally manifested and created that vision, and then you went for it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of what you've been through, which is, just getting over alopecia and a mix of that, maybe the psychedelic trips of seeing how we're all connected, helped you become more of a visionary. So you were able to, it does seem like you were able to just collect all of your experiences into like, hey, you know what? I can make this happen. And you were thinking ahead. And, my guess, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, my guess is you were able to overcome your trauma before you took over the business, or was it after?
It was after. The initial thing was after. So the business was after the initial, probably maybe 2 years, a year, 2 years after the initial event of losing all my hair. So obviously the drive, I've always been extremely driven. There's no doubt about that. Like I told you in a little interview we had, I walked before I crawled.
Yeah.
I literally pulled myself up and dragged myself around the furniture. I would refuse to crawl. So that's always been my nature. Sometimes I've been a little bit gung-ho, a little bit running into situations rather where I should have walked into them. I've had to backtrack and learn from that situation. Probably been a bit more eager than I should have been, but it's not a bad trait to have. It seems to have served me well so far.
That's awesome.
What about you? What about yourself? What's your sort of mentality? Are you a drag yourself along, crawl, walk type of guy?
I think it was very gradual for me. It was very gradual. I'm more of an observer, and then I make my decisions. That's how I know myself now. I don't have memories of crawling, or I don't think I've had that conversation, but I do know that I always like to move to music. But I'm definitely like, it was very much like a crawl into a slow, like aggressive crawl into, like, I think for me it was very gradual. I would not be surprised if it was extremely gradual. Like the polar
You'll have to ask
opposite.
your mum. Yeah. You'll have to ask your mum. But obviously, I do know you're quite methodical because I've listened to your podcasts, and like kudos to you. They're really good. Really, I don't know how I even stumbled across it. I think I was away in Europe, and I'd been to Rome, and I think I'd come to Crete. It was its 20th wedding anniversary, and I come across it. Don't know how. Come across it anyway. Started delving into it, and really enjoyed it. And probably, obviously, it took us to this on this little journey, which has been fantastic, really.
Which is awesome. And I like how you brought that up, because I think people listening will appreciate that, where like you run into something that you enjoy, and then before you know it, you're like having a conversation. And I like how the community is like that, where you can run into people that are similar interests, right? Similar goals. And we're very like inviting, right? And like we vibed pretty quickly because you know my vibe from the show. So I do appreciate you saying positive things about the show, and I'm glad that you enjoy it. And I'm working on listening to yours. My brain has a hard time digesting the accent, so it's one of those like I gotta listen for it for a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I think I know what's going on, because you guys.
Well, on Spotify. Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry,
No,
John.
no, like the cool thing is like you guys are being yourselves, right? And you're hanging with the boys, and so you're gonna have your slang, and the people that are familiar with that slang are going to appreciate it the most, because it's like this is my people, right? And then for me, I'm enjoying hearing other people enjoy their time with their good friends, because I'm all about finding your tribe so that you can be yourself and then really explore yourself versus trying to fit into something that you think that you should be in and not really exploring yourself. You're just exploring other people, and you're going further away from your inner potential.
Yeah, I think it's great when you say about that, finding yourself is, I think you have to get to a certain age before you come comfortable in your own skin. I think, especially with the pressures of society, i.e. your social media and stuff like that. So advice to any younger listeners would definitely be, once you make peace with that, don't care what anyone thinks about you. Don't be judgmental on other people. You'll see someone walking down the street and you go, what's that guy wearing, or what's that girl wearing? Who cares? It's the natural law. If they're not doing no harm to anyone, why do we care? Why is it portrayed in the media that they're not wearing the best trainees, they're not wearing the best tracksuits? It doesn't matter. It matters that they're a good human being, and that's what we're very, very removed from at the moment. And you solve all these problems, and the world will be a much better place.
I think we can end it right there. Just make the world a better place. So
that's it. Let it be.
Let it be. I have to play that song. I have to do like a reel or something, because I don't think I'll have. I definitely don't have the rights to that song. But so the number 42 podcast. I have to ask, why 42? Is that a long story?
It's taken from, what's the film where it's the meaning of the universe, 7 is 42. It's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, I love that movie.
So it's 42 is the answer to everything.
Yes.
That's the secret of the universe.
That's
where it comes from, yeah.
That's the answer, the number 42. Oh, now I get it. I feel so ashamed that I didn't know that. It's been too long that I haven't seen that movie. Man, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that any last message, anything that you're working on that you want to close out on?
We're working on some live stuff at the moment, so if you do get a chance to listen to our show, maybe for the American listeners, you want to dial it down on Spotify, you can actually slow it down, so you'll understand our fast type of lingo that we speak. We are working on some live stuff and interactive community stuff, because we're trying to bring people together all the time. So if you do happen to follow us, there will be videos coming shortly.
I look forward to it, man. Thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Keep the hard work, mate. Keep up the hard work. I really, really appreciate what you're doing.